Here are my top 10 arcane spells and one cantrip in Pathfinder 2e. For the cantrip, I've gone with Infectious Enthusiasm. For one round, you gain a +1 status bonus to attack rolls, will saving throws, or charisma-based skill checks. Also, during that duration, an ally who saw you cast the spell can spend an action with the Concentrate trait to gain the same bonus. Thus, casting the spell not only helps you out, but it also helps an ally out, which is very good on a cantrip. The Fear spell makes the target anywhere from Frightened 1 to Frightened 3 and fleeing, depending on their will saving throw. I've talked before about how good the Frightened condition actually is. If you want to know what the Frightened condition actually does, stick around to the end of this video. But what's really awesome about this spell is that it's available to all casters. It doesn't matter what spell list you have access to this spell. But it's such a good spell that I thought I'd cover it in the arcane list since that's what I'm doing first. For the level 2 spell on this list, I've gone with Hideous Laughter. The Hideous Laughter spell can make the target unable to use reactions. The target might also be slowed 1 or spend an entire round laughing. Getting rid of enemy actions is always good, no matter how you do it. And an entire round where an enemy isn't attacking you is fantastic. At level 3, Impending Doom deals 66 mental damage to the opponent. Now, mental damage is non-lethal damage. However, the foe might also be flat-footed, frightened, stunned, or even paralyzed. Whether these conditions occur and their severity depend on the target's will saving throw. It does take 3 rounds for all these effects to occur. However, still a fantastic spell. Definitely worth picking up if you're an arcane caster. Confusion makes the target either stunned to 1 or confused depending on their will saving throw. On a failed saving throw, the target gets a new saving throw at the end of each of his turns to end the confusion, but not if they critically fail. I haven't covered either of those conditions yet in a video, but don't worry, I will be soon. This spell is fantastic to combine with a spell like Darkness, especially if enemies can't see through the darkness. Now we come to 5th level and my personal favorite 5th level spell, that being Mirror Malefactors. You surround the target with mirrors. This spell does not work on enemies that don't have reflections like vampires. However, for those that the spell does work on, they become frightened to 1 and can't reduce their frightened value as long as you sustain the spell. This spell also deals 78 mental damage when you cast the spell and when you sustain it, with a basic will save. If they succeed on any of those will saves, the spell ends. And you can combine this spell with the Fear spell for some great effects. True that 2 frightened conditions won't stack with each other. However, if you can manage to get frightened 2 or better, then they still can't lower their frightened condition as long as they're affected by the spell. Next we have a spell whose name you may remember if you played Pathfinder 1e, Baleful Polymorph. This one actually requires a Fortitude saving throw. This spell can make the target sickened 1, transform into a harmless animal, or transform into a harmless animal both body and mind. The effects and duration depend on the target's saving throw. This spell does have the incapacitation trait, so it's not going to work well on enemies that are higher level than you. But if you've used this spell in Pathfinder 1e, you know how powerful this spell can be. If you're coming from 5e, then this spell can take a foe out of the fight completely if they crit fail, or even just fail. But even if they just regularly succeed, Sicken is a great condition. For a level 7 spell, I've gone with Inexhaustible Cynicism. This spell makes the target not trust anything, including its own allies and anything it's told. It even doesn't trust its own ability to recall knowledge. The target is also unwilling to ingest anything, or be a target of anything that requires a willing target. The duration of this effect depends on the target's will save, anywhere from a round to a full hour. This one is great on bosses, especially if minions keep buffing the boss. For the level 8 spell for this video, I've gone with Power Word Stun. This spell obviously stuns the target. How long they're stunned depends on their level. They can lose anywhere from 1d6 full rounds to 1 action. Once you use this spell on a target, they're immune for 10 minutes. Stunned is pretty good, and like I said earlier, I'm going to cover Stunned in another video. Unspeakable Shadow is another great fear spell. Creature can be anywhere from Frightened 2 to Frightened 4 because of this spell. And if they crit fail on this spell, then they have to make a Fortitude save or die. This part of the spell does have the incapacitation trait. Also, if they fail or crit fail, they cannot reduce their frightened condition below 1 for 1 minute. Also, a creature that is frightened by this spell must spend one of its actions either attacking its shadow, which does nothing, or fleeing from its shadow, as if it had the fleeing condition. So not only does this spell give them the frightened condition, but it also forces them to waste one of their actions, making this a great spell to use on bosses even if it doesn't kill them outright. And the last spell that I'm going to cover for this video is Shadow Army. You create dozens of semi-real copies of yourself that you can hide and sneak amongst. Enemies within the area take 3d10 mental damage and 3d10 bludgeoning damage. In addition, they might also gain a condition of your choice chosen from the following list, depending on their saving throw. Clumsy 2, Enfeebled 2, Flat-footed, or Slowed 1. They must also make this save if they end their turn in the area. If they fail or crit fail on their saving throw, then they gain the chosen condition. This one is fantastic for any shadow sorcerer, as well as any spellcaster that wants to be sneaky, especially if they happen to have the rogue archetype. Alright guys, if you liked the video, go ahead and leave a like, and subscribe to the channel for more Pathfinder 2e content. Also, you new players out there, let me know what else you're having trouble with. I may do a video on it. If you're having trouble understanding some of the conditions in Pathfinder 2e, I did a video on them recently. You can check that out right here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, teamwork is vital.